Welcome to voter registration training. The League of Women Voters of the City of New York is a nonpartisan organization whose purpose is to promote informed and active citizen participation in government. Our mission is to expand our outreach and increase all New Yorkers' participation in local communities and government through civics education, the vote, and issues advocacy. We need to emphasize that we are not just encouraging people to register to vote, we are encouraging people to vote. This requires thinking more globally about the creation of a voting action plan. Therefore, the purpose of this workshop is to train you to help others create their voting action plan. We will go over the basics so that you can help demystify the process of voting for the people you come in contact with. We will review important information you will need to know to successfully register and inform voters about the upcoming elections. We will share useful resources and help you prepare for the voter registration drive. We will brainstorm strategies to deal with disenfranchised and cynical potential voters. Here are some websites we will be showing you today. You might want to take a screenshot of this page. The New York City Board of Elections, Voter Lookup, the Poll Site Locator, Vote 411, and of course, the League of Women Voters of the City of New York. The first step to create a voting action plan is to be sure you are registered to vote. There are three ways to register to vote in New York. Online through the Department of Motor Vehicles, and that requires voters to have updated their New York State driver's license, learner's permit, or non-driver ID. You can also register online through the Board of Elections website, vote.nyc, and we like to encourage voters to use this portal. And lastly, a person can register to vote using the paper form. It's a free download that you can print on your own from the New York City Board of Elections, again, at vote.nyc. You could pick up a form for free with prepaid postage at any Board of Elections office. There's a new rule at the United States Postal Service now that means that everyone who is registering to vote, requesting a mail-in or absentee ballot, or voting by mail must mail their ballot no later than 7 days before the deadline. If you want to get a hand postmark, you must go to the service window at the post office. This is a serious change to the previous procedure. People will be disenfranchised if their ballot is postmarked late. Please be sure to inform everyone about this new procedure. The next important step in creating your voting action plan is to keep track of all the important dates besides the U.S. Postal Service's change and plan when and where to vote. Every election's important dates and deadlines will be available on the Board of Elections website and on our website. You can use the poll site locator to determine where you need to vote. Your poll site may be different during early voting, and it may change from one election cycle to the next. So it's important to check your poll site location every election cycle. Once a person is registered, we want them to know that a person can vote in three different ways in New York State. We have mail-in voting, and the voter must apply for the mail-in ballot either online or in person. We have early voting. These are 9 scheduled days prior to Election Day when you can go to the polls and vote. Remember, early voting poll sites differ from Election Day poll sites. Look up your poll site and hours at Poll Site Locator at vote.nyc. Just like on election day, you must vote at your designated poll site. The times may vary from day to day. Early morning, daytime, and evening hours are all available, but on different days. And of course, you can always vote on traditional election day. Again, check your poll site on Poll Site Locator to be sure you are at the correct poll site. Remember, you are represented by where you live, so you must vote at the correct site. Knowing who and what are on the ballot is the next step in creating your voting action plan. You can see your sample ballot when you check your poll site since you are represented by where you live. Your ballot will be different from other people's ballots since you may be represented by a different elected official. We also vote for propositions that are changes to the New York State Constitution or the New York City Charter. These will also be on your sample ballot, but they will be on the reverse side. So we need to remind everybody to flip their ballot. We encourage voters to check out Vote 411, which is the National League of Women Voters platform, to learn nonpartisan information about the candidates and propositions. But voters can also check out their candidates' websites and other media to learn more about what the candidates' positions are. When we talk to voters, they often have questions for us. Here are some frequently asked questions about voting in New York. How can I vote if I'm disabled? If you are visually impaired or have a disability that requires you to use an accessible version of the mail-in ballot that can be read by a screen reader, you can visit vote.nyc and go to Accessible. Some people ask, can I still vote in person if I requested a mail-in ballot? The answer to that question is no, but sort of. The new law says that if you request a mail-in ballot, you may not vote in person. However, if you do go to the polls, you could request an affidavit ballot. That ballot will be set aside after you vote until it is determined that you did not vote by mail-in ballot. Once you are registered to vote, you can exercise your right and responsibility to actually vote. If you decide to vote in person, try to remember to bring the voting card that was mailed to you before the election. This voting card has all the information the poll worker will need to get your ballot to you. There is even an option to use a QR code to put your voting card on your phone. When you arrive at your poll site, you will be greeted by the information clerk who can help you if you do not have your voting card. They will tell you if you are at the correct poll site and which table to go to. The table they send you to is determined by your ED/AD, Election District, Assembly District. You can also find these numbers when you check your voting status at vote.nyc. The ballot you receive is specific to your district and will be different than other people's ballots since, once again, remember, you are represented by where you live. Poll sites are special places. There is no photography and there are no pets allowed. You may certainly bring your children so they could see how all this works, and if you need assistance from an aide or a family member, that's allowed also. Some people ask, what do I do if I'm not in the book? If your name does not pop up in the e-poll book, make sure you gave the poll worker your correct legal name and that they understood you when you said your exact address. Be sure to once again check your voter information at vote.nyc. You might be at the wrong poll site. Some of them are rather close together, and you might be at the wrong school or the wrong church. If you are sure, ask for an affidavit ballot. Again, this works like an absentee ballot in that you vote and place the ballot in a special oath envelope with all your information, and then it will be verified at the BOE and counted later. It will count if you are eligible to vote at that site. As mentioned previously, you may also vote by affidavit ballot if you change your mind about voting absentee after you have applied for the absentee ballot. Another reason to vote by affidavit ballot is if you are at the wrong poll site and you don't have time to go to the correct poll site before the close of voting on election day. In this case, the section of your ballot that represents your actual voting district will be counted. The 10-day voter registration law means that you may register to vote on the first day of early voting. Again, you will use an affidavit ballot if you vote on that date as you register to vote. Some people ask, well, what do I do when the poll worker hands me my ballot? Go to a privacy booth and complete the ballot. You will need to bubble in the oval for the candidates you choose. You must bubble in completely. Do not use check marks or an X on the ballot because it will not go through the machine. If you have difficulty reading the ballot or bubbling in neatly, you may request the ballot marking device, the BMD. This is a special voting machine that bubbles in for you. You could also use a cursor or a touchpad or even a blow straw to mark your ballot. This machine is at every poll site and it's available for anyone to request. What if I make a mistake, someone might ask? You may bring the ballot back to the poll worker at your table and request a new ballot. The poll worker will keep your bad ballot so it can be counted as voided at the end of the evening. You can even do it a third time if you mess up the second one. Every ballot must be accounted for by the poll workers, so always bring it back to the table. Never throw a ballot in the trash or stick it in your pocket. Now let's talk about the event that you are preparing to host. If you organize your own voter registration drive, you will need registration forms and absentee and mail-in ballot applications from a Board of Elections office. The forms are provided in several languages. You will also need clipboards, blue or black ink pens, QR codes to allow access to the websites that we've discussed today, and if needed, your own signage to identify your group. You want to select a good location and a good time to do your voter registration drive when people will be able to stop and talk with you. When you're preparing for your voter registration drive, you want to consider your own comfort. What's the weather? Wear walking shoes. How are you going to carry and hold all the materials? Have snacks and water for yourself. It's always good to have snacks on the table for the folks who come over to you, too. A bowl of lollipops does wonders. Have your phone fully charged so you could use it to access the information that we've provided for you today. You're going to need to supply the voter information about vote.nyc and several of the other websites we've shared with you. Be sure to emphasize that if you're working with the League of Women Voters, that you are working with a nonpartisan organization. You may certainly do your own voter registration drive for a partisan organization, but be sure you inform the voters very clearly as to who you are representing at your voter registration drive. At your drive, you really want to engage with the current and future voters you come in contact with. You want to use good eye contact and talk to everyone. Go beyond yes or no questions and talk to them about when was the last time you updated your voter registration. Can we discuss whether you've moved recently? Do you want information on who's running in this current election? Do you know about your poll site? Has your poll site changed? Many times voters come to us and there are common barriers that people have when they approach our tables. So what would you say if someone said to you, I don't know if I'm eligible to vote? You can show them a list of the eligibility requirements, which simply are 18 years of age, a citizen, and a resident. Somebody might say to you, I'm not sure what the status of my registration is. You could help that person look up their status at vote.nyc. Sometimes people come up to the table and they say, I'm in a rush. I don't have time. And we can say to them, no problem. I don't want to take you away from your day, so I'm happy to walk with you and even help you fill out the form as we go. Or here's a form to take with you. And when you're done, seal it and drop it in the mail. You won't even need a stamp. Many times voters approach us with negative feelings and frustration. Think about what you would say to validate a voter who comes up to you and says something like, the system is rigged. We could respond to that in a very non-judgmental way and acknowledge their feelings by saying, you're right. It is rigged, in part because it's set up to prevent people from voting. By voting, you will unrig the system. Sometimes people say politicians are crooks and criminals, and we could respond, yes, there are a lot of crooked politicians out there, and that's why we need to vote to get those people out of office and replace them with people who care about us and our communities and our concerns. You have the power to take a situation you dislike and make it better. You can call or email your representatives. They want to hear from you. After all, they work for you. Sometimes people will say to us, my vote doesn't matter. It doesn't make a difference. We need to hear the voter. We need to be active listeners. They tell us what they need us to say to enable them to feel that the vote does matter. We need to validate the person. The voter has to trust us. Talk casually and normally to the voter. Speak slowly, use simple words, repeat back what they say. Be positive, be respectful, and be non-judgmental. Help them connect voting directly to their day-to-day lives. Use emotional intelligence, joy, not fear or anger. Skip the policy conversations. Instead, focus on the general outcomes. We do not have to agree with the voter, but we need to find common ground. Most things we vote on are local and therefore directly impactful. Tell them a quick personal story if it fits the conversation you're having. We want to empower people. We want to stress the importance of their individual actions when they are a voter. We want to make people understand that voting is not a chore. Voting is a right. It's caring for yourself and your community. Let's take a look now at the actual voter registration form. You can use your phone to access it here at vote.nyc and review the online voter information registration form there. The paper form that we will look at now is a very simple form to complete. On this slide, you will see a close-up of the blue section of the form, which appears at the top. It shows what the form is for, and it gives you a lot of information. It will tell you what to do if you're registering for the first time. And of course, you can use this form anywhere in New York State. Let's take a closer look at the form now. Notice that the first section is qualifications. Who is eligible to vote? A person must be a citizen of the United States. We want to make sure that we do not allow people who are non-citizens to register. It could seriously affect their chances of obtaining citizenship later. But we never ask if they are a citizen. What we do is simply point at this section and say, are you eligible to vote? And let them make the decision. The person must be 18 years of age by election day in order to vote. And we can now pre-register anyone who is 16 years of age. And when they turn 18, they will automatically be a registered voter. A person cannot be in prison for a felony conviction, but a person who is incarcerated awaiting trial in detention or in jail for a misdemeanor is eligible to vote now. They must live in their New York municipality for at least 30 days before Election Day. They cannot vote anywhere else. And they have to be competent. They cannot be found to have been incompetent by a court. There's also the section that we will look at in a couple of minutes about verifying identity. We'll get to that in just a moment. The next section requires the person to put their legal name. They must print very legibly if they're doing this by paper form, and it must be their legal name. Birth date is required, and then it's requested that the Board of Elections have a contact information in case they need to reach out to the voter with a question. Gender is optional. The address where you live will allow you to vote from the poll site that represents that district. Section 8 will allow people to put down their legal address. Section 9 is only for people who receive mail at a different location than where they live. Section 10 is just a place for people who have voted before and are re-registering to show the Board of Elections that they may be in the system at a different location. That would lead that person to Section 12. If they have voted before and they are re-registering, they need to list what their previous name was if they've changed their name, which is an important reason to re-register. If they changed their address, what was their old address? And if they moved from a previous state or a different New York county, what was the previous one for that? Then we come to the section on identification. The only thing that's needed to register to vote in New York State is either the New York State Department of Motor Vehicles number or the last 4 digits of your Social Security number. If a person does not remember their Social Security number and does not have a Department of Motor Vehicles number, they can still register, but the first time they vote, they will have to bring ID to validate their identity. The next section about political party is very important, and we're going to address that in just a minute. But the final step of the form is to read the bullet points, which is a legal affidavit about citizenship, living in that location for 30 days, meeting all the requirements, and then the person must sign and date. If a person is unable to sign, they may sign with a mark. They may make an X or some other sign to show that they are signing this form. I want to spend a minute talking about political party registration on the form. The League of Women Voters urges all New Yorkers who are registering to vote to be sure that they have enrolled in a political party of their choice. Again, we are nonpartisan, so we are not telling people what political party to join. But New York State is a closed primary state, which means only people who are registered in the political party that is holding a primary may vote in the primary elections. Registering with one of the two main political parties that hold primaries allow voters to vote twice as much each year because they can vote in their party's primary election and then, of course, in the general election. Primary elections are where many of the real electoral choices and voter influence are in New York City. Remember, you do not have to be a party member to vote in the general election. This only impacts voting in the primary. But using our voices to make our voices louder and stronger really matters, and we want to encourage folks to join a political party. Once you have registered the voters, we want to celebrate and cheer the voters. We want to tell the voter what's going to happen to their voter registration form. Be sure you tell them that you can submit it to the Board of Elections on their behalf and that the Board of Elections will mail the voter a confirmation within 4 to 6 weeks. If a voter does not receive a confirmation, they should contact the Board of Elections to ask them about their status. A person can check their own registration status again at vote.nyc. You want to make sure that the status says active. After your voter registration drive is completed, be sure that all of the paper registration forms are sealed with tape and submitted to the local Board of Elections, or you can mail it at the post office. Be sure again that you follow the deadlines and mail at least 7 days before any deadline due to the new Postal Service procedures. In New York City, the League of Women Voters provides timely information for New York City voters. And in order to do this, we maintain a telephone information service to answer questions from voters during election seasons. We publish informational materials to keep voters updated. We host candidate forums and debates, and we provide speakers to share information with community groups, corporations, schools, and libraries, and folks like you. We welcome new members, volunteers, and supporters like you to help us do this important work. Thank you all so much for participating in this voter registration training. In closing, we'd like to end with a quote from one of the greatest voting rights advocates, the late John Lewis, Congress member from Georgia, who said, "Never give up, never give in, never give out. Keep the faith and keep your eyes on the prize. Each and every vote matters. Do your part and vote like you've never voted before. Believe in the power of love, and together we will build the beloved community here in America." Thank you all so much.